All right, finally on the bench today. I'm gonna go ahead and start taking this thing apart and start the restore process. This is the original Bianco 1991 Universe. It is the 77PWH or something like that, or WHP or whatever. But it's the white Universe, and he played it for a few years. Sold it to my buddy Robert Mason, and then he sold it to me. So now it's finally ready to go. Now this was obviously set up for Bianco's crazy tapping technique, to which he is legendary for. But we're gonna set it up for me. The tremolo, it's loose right now, but I always block my tremolos and stuff like that. I know you're gonna say it's stupid to do that, but I just, if I do alternate tunings and stuff like that, I don't wanna have to mess with the tremolo and all that stuff. So we got some, crud, normal, just stuff over the years and all that. But what was really interesting when I saw this guitar for the first time, you can see that it's white, but really, if I turn off this light, you can see the color contrast. It's cream. It's almost a yellow. So I would almost say next to any other thing, especially when you see that, it's pretty yellow when you think of like what, a piece of white paper right next to it. When you look at the color contrast, that's not white. So if you want to call it Olympus white, I'd call it Olympus white, but it is definitely, and I looked at a lot of these guitars, and I think that's just natural from the factory that they were using from the Fujiden or whatever they were doing back then. They had some weird issues with fading, and obviously if you play this in the sun a lot, it's going to do that kind of thing. But even the pickups change colors, so that's kind of a cool thing. But I like it. It's very, very cool. It's not really considered. I don't think it's is white as much as it would be, but that's the cool thing about a patina guitar. Everything is in very, very good condition. It's probably the best condition tremolo I've seen in a long time, just from not being just beat up and worn off and everything like that. But because of his technique, he didn't really pick, with the pick. So he was always his hands over here. So this stuff really never got touched. So that's why it's in such good condition. But we've got the pickups, which I believe are Blaze pickups. I don't know exactly which one this one is, but I'll put, some info there when I get into it. But I believe these are Blaze 2s that are in here. And then all of the switches, these work, and it's not corroded. This works. But, see how thin that is? Half this pickup is not working. So I think that there's a really corroded connection inside of this, which is pretty common. And we'll open this up and look at the guts. We'll also see what's underneath the neck pocket. I'm sure that's never been removed. Everything else is in pretty standard, you can see made in Japan. You can see this is obviously this cover plate right here. It's every Ibanez from this era looks exactly like this. So that's very normal. The neck is in great shape. It's not, I think it's the Wizard 2 or maybe just a Wizard neck, but it's very, very thin profile. Very, very comfortable. Very, very fast. And I believe this RG, you can look at the down the frets. There's hardly any radius to it at all. There is a radius, but barely any. So we'll find out what that radius is, and we'll get into it. So I'll take some pictures for the record, and we'll see what happens. Cool, so what I can tell right here is we've got an N1 stamped right here. You can see it's kind of like right there. So that would be neck 1, and then this is M1, which is middle 1, and then there's this guy right here, which is B1. So these were obviously specifically made for this guitar. I can't imagine DiMarzio having any pickups named just that. So I believe the Blaze. I may be wrong. I don't know. They may be specific for this guitar. I just don't know. But what was interesting is after I peeled off yes, that's underwear. I'm not even going to deny it. But it's basically old underwear that never gets used, and it's very clean. But we're just taking a look at the color differences. So yeah, it was never really white, because you can see this would have covered it, or it would have, prevented it from hitting the sun. But it actually is more of a cream. It's more of an Olympus white or an off-white or something like that. So that is kind of interesting to see that. This is not the same switch that I thought it was. So this looks like it's kind of a standard type of Fender kind of switch. Pretty basic wiring. You can see you've got the coil taps or coil splits right here. Those are from this position, this position. That's probably for the lead for the ground. And then that's the hot from this, hot from that. And then the hot from the blue wire is probably from, well, let's see, let's trace that. So that's hot from there. Those are the splits, and then the hots from the other pickup. So pretty basic. Doesn't look like it was very clean. Whoever did this right here looked like they kind of got into it. I was kind of surprised it looks that kind of funky and everything like that. But it, as long as it works. But we got to figure out why that pickup, this pickup right here, is not putting out all the output. Looks like there's something tied off here. Now, as you can see, this has a radius. Maybe I missed that on the other tremolo because this actual platter is radiused. So these right here, these pieces can't be screwed up if they're actually out of order. So that's, I think, the difference between something that I missed on the other tremolo that was on the RG7, because I think the tremolos are identical, but it's this that's actually radiused for that guy. So, okay, so it's a 14-inch radius. Yep, it's a 14. So that's the radius that we have right there. So pretty big radius, not a 16. It's not as flat. I would have probably thought that the other RG7 that I worked on, the 620, that felt like it was even flatter than this one. But it's probably about the same. So, but I did find, which is pretty cool, this right here. This is a brass block that I got for, I think, another guitar. It's super, super heavy. I mean, damn near almost weighs as much as this whole thing. So I'm going to take this off, put that brass block on it, because this is just sitting here doing nothing, and I actually had it as a spare part. So that's pretty cool. So these pieces are pretty cool because when they go into the cowls for the tremolo, sorry, I can't really see it, but when you're basically screwing these things in, they have these adjustable screws right at the end that you can twist and get the exact height you want for the action. So if once they finally go in, they can't depress any further past this tip. So if you go, obviously screw them in like this, you can make them much shorter like that, and then the tremolo will be lower. So I don't know if it's going to make a huge difference, but I mean, you can adjust your trim, but that's just kind of like a safety, or like a set screw that can help with setting action, stuff like that. But pretty cool. Just a nice little thing. Most people never take those things off and didn't even know that they existed, so you can use them. Neck is straight, so I'm not really worried about that. I do worry about the condition of these particular frets, though. They look like they have quite a bit of wear on them. They're not inherently, I mean, this is the original high point, and it's not awful, but I feel like if I actually try to get all of these dings and pings and all this kind of stuff that's on the fret wear all the way down, I'm going to have to remove quite a bit of the top of this to be able to crown it. And I don't know if these are tall enough to be able to handle that. So I guess we'll just have to try. It's better than doing a fret job, but if I do, I've got the fret wire already, and I can always, do this thing from scratch and then get really nice tall frets. But doing this twice sucks. But let's just see what we end up with when we level it out. I was able to get all the marks out and don't have to worry about any flat spots. There's a little tiny ting. I think you can see it right there. But once I crown that, that's going to go away. I have enough edge on the top to be able to avoid that kind of a problem. But yeah, you can see from the amount of particles on there, that is a lot of nickel had to be removed. So some of these things are almost just completely flat. And they still have, I'd say, plenty of life in them. It's not as high as I'd want them to be, but at the same point in time, the neck on this is so low, or so thin, that you really don't need really tall frets to get the job done. It plays really well. I'll probably nail this just a couple more times just to see if I can get just a little bit more of an edge on there, because I don't want to have to do it twice, but I don't think that's going to be a big deal. Just wanted to point something out to you guys, just so there's no confusion about what's going on here. When you use a marker after you've leveled and checked with the fret rocker all of the spots, this is imperative for a tool for you to check all these spots. That's why they have these different areas, because the lower you go down, if you only had one side, you'd be stretching off too many frets. So you need to be very precise. That's too short. You don't want to do 2 frets, you want to do 3 frets. So this would be the edge that you'd want to use. But anyways, you go all the way up, pretty much 3 middle kind of areas as much as you can. And once you get too tight where you can't do that, like right here, that's when you switch to this side and, you know, just go up and down. So that's how you use a fret rocker. Don't get crappy, cheap ones. This one is Skyscraper, okay? And that's the depths. It actually has a little depth tool so you can see how high everything on the action. But anyways, this is a quality tool. I got this one on Amazon a while ago. It's just stuck to the whole thing. I can't even pull it off, but there was another one that I had that was just awful. But anyways, that's not here nor there. But what we want to make sure that when you get a tool to do this kind of measurement, if you're trying to do this and your neck isn't straight, you haven't done the neck, you know, first, and if your neck is bowed and you're going over this, then basically when you straighten the neck, all the frets are going to be wrong. So you need to make sure that you have a really good straight edge, okay? Don't go cheap on these things. They're worth every penny. This is a Fret Guru file, so I've got 240 on one side and 100 on this one. So basically, that's a straight edge as well. That needs to be very good. And then, you know, just make sure you've got a fret rocker to make sure that you've got that. This is also just a cork holder. Now, the problem is with the neck being the way it is, it has to hang off the side because it basically can't just sit here. So you need to be able to support the neck some way. So when you're pushing down on it, StewMac even has a jig to where you've got all these different types of things to hold it in the exact spot, and you can even flip over the guitar when you're actually working on it so it actually emulates holding it. I don't think that's really necessary. I've done these guitars several times and I've never had to deal with that kind of stuff. But they've been doing it for 50 years. I've been doing it for 5 years. So I cannot argue with their methods. It's just that I've never needed to do that. So it's not extreme. That being said, once we get into doing this, the reason that we put the black marker on there, you can use pretty much any marker, Sharpie, whatever, is to show you when you're doing the filing where the points come to a top. Now, once you get to a fine line, okay, and I'll just go ahead and do this in front of you. This is a cool file. This is, if you're ever going to get into working on frets, I highly recommend getting you the original Z file. Don't have to worry about the different versions that you have out there. I don't know the differences between them, but these things are no joke. They're not cheap. These things are probably, nowadays with inflation, it's 2023, in June, July, whatever, it could be $200 for this tool. Worth every penny. First off, it's less than the cost of the fret job, so it'll pay for itself off of one thing. But what you're going to do is we'll look at this real close, kind of zoom in as much as we can here. A little bit higher. There we go. So we'll do this fret right here. And what I'm going to do is, this is an offset tool. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see that there's a higher point on one side and then there's a higher point on the other side. So when you flip the tool over, it hits the other side of the fret. Okay. So we'll go ahead and do this one just to show you real quick. We'll just run it across straight. Do about 5 or 6 passes. And then we're going to go to the other side, flipping it over, and then doing this. Now you can see it is putting a crown right there, and you can see how obviously the line is getting thinner than it was because it's going from a flat to an edge. But if you do it too much with a wrong type of tool, what you'll end up doing is you'll come over the top of that, and then you will remove the crown at the top. And then the fret that you're working on, if you work on it too much, it will be bowed underneath it. So then this will be too high, this will be too low, and this will be too high. So as soon as you push on this fret, because you overworked it, this will buzz. Okay? And that's what happens. The other thing is when you're doing these right here, you want the point to be a pretty thin line. And the reason that you want it to be as thin as possible without it completely disappearing, and the cool thing about this offset file is because it's offset, it doesn't allow you to go and work it too hard. So it's kind of amateur proof. So that's one side. You can see because of the direction that we're working on, this right here is a thinner line than at the top. So what we do is we spin it around and work on it the other direction. And it's hard to do that with this neck not off to the side. So I'll just try it from here. See if we can get it in the positioning like that. There we go. Go from here. Yeah, it's starting to work from this angle much better. And you can actually see, we got to be careful here. Do you see that right there at the very top? That's overworked. Okay, so once the line goes away, you're going to get in trouble. So it doesn't have to be the super pinstripe, but you got to be careful about the angle of attack, because this is a radius, and if you work it too much, and you're going to do fret marks like that. So be very careful, or just take the time and tape off your fretboard. And shouldn't be too big of a deal. All right, so this is pretty close to being done. You can see how thin that line is right there. And that's going to get polished, and so it'll look like a round fret when it's done. But we just got to kind of see if we can work just the end of this fret more than the rest of it. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Now the idea is this. Once I put this fret rocker back on here, where is the fret rocker? Okay. This should not have any problems at all. Like when I go like this, see? It's not rocking. Not rocking. It's perfect. It's the same because the tip of this is still as high. Okay? So the point where the string is actually going to be there, that's the whole point. That's where the string is going to hit there. Now, why would you care to crown these? Why is it so important to get a thin line right there? Well, think about it like this. If it's flat and a string makes contact with the point right here, it's so big on this side versus this right here is really thin and precise that the string is it's going to go into the contact of this edge, and there's a lot of space that string is basically making connection with. So basically these frets would be slightly out of intonation because they're not precise. They're too wide. I mean, think of it as like a fretless guitar. If there was no frets on this and you pushed right here versus pushed right here, the pitch would be different. So when you have a wide fret, that's what's going to create the pitch problem. So that's why when you see people that will level the frets and they don't go back and actually crown them, they save a lot of time. And yes, this will work and it will play and it'll have good action and all that kind of stuff, but the intonation will not be as glassy and it will not look as good at the end of the day. And that's what the condition of this thing was in. So that's how it is. So we'll finish up, do all of this, and just watch the video for the rest of the information. Here's the before. This is basically after the crowning and all of the fret erasers. So it's not bad, did a little bit of steel wool polishing and stuff like that. And it's got a little bit of a shimmer. But this is what it looks like if you do the final Dremel. Those are pretty much mirrors. So I've done this on almost probably 50 to 60% of the guitars that I have done full restores on, but this is the treatment that you do, and you will never have a better intonated or glassy tone, especially vibrato, bending, everything is so smooth. So you can really get a glassy tone out of this thing. So definitely worth taking the time. It takes about an hour to get through. Just need some compound, Dremel, a little bit of patience, and just mask off the frets. That's it. Those are as shiny as they get. Looks like we've got some kind of a bad connection here. I'm not exactly sure what went wrong. Let's see if I can put this in here to give you some idea. So typically what you're doing is all the Marzio pickups, you put the black and the white together. And I do need to double check this, but essentially it's black and white together. Red is the lead hot wire, and then the green and the bare wire go together. So that's the ground. So we'll go ahead and get those together, and we'll put the connection on this. And you can see the resistance is exactly 13.71. But when we go to this, we get 0. And that's why I was thinking that there was something wrong. I'm not exactly sure, because this is supposed to be the split option when you go into this, and that works. So I am not exactly sure what went wrong with this particular setup, but it seems like something rather around through here, for example, You can see how these are connected, and there may be just a bad connection between these 2 points right here. So we can just kind of pull this off. They're soldered together. It doesn't make any sense that that wouldn't be right, unless there's a break in the cable. So let's try to tap it from here. And we still get nothing. So that kind of sucks, because that leads me to believe that, and I need to mark these. I'm going to forget which they are. But I can pull these off and just kind of start to see if there is a break in the actual pickup. If that's the case, that sucks, because that would make this guitar, you know, not 100% original, and that is a disappointment. So here we're at. I think we just got a busted cable, or not a cable, but a busted pickup, and maybe one of the leads. I had this happen on another guitar, but what I did is I checked the continuity after I did this, just to make sure that there wasn't a split inside the actual wire here. So I'll just give you an example. I've already done this, so I'm not going to do all of them, but you would test the wire here and test the wire here, and we can see we got good continuity. So I've already done that, so there's no problem with this wire here at all. But here is when we separate these two guys. We've got this one over schmear and this one over schmear. So these are the, whatever, call it north start, north end, whatever. These are the two. So this black and red, those are those guys. And you see they go to that same thing. So when we actually try to see if we can get this wire touching and this one, there's nothing there at all. And we put resistance on it, and we got an open link. And again, sometimes this is not the greatest to see if we can get something, but basically we're getting nothing on that. And we'll just try the other one just to give you an example. Over here, got that one here and this one here. Alligator clips are not really good for this precise stuff, but okay, so now you can see it right there. So you can see there's definitely resistance. It's just that the alligator clip is having a little bit of trouble holding on to that point, so I just got to get it a little bit. There we go. So that's stable, and that's what we found. So this coil is good, and that's what I noticed even when I was playing the guitar. I was only getting a half a sound. So whatever this was going when it was in the second position with the middle pickup, it was a great full sound, but when I put it in the humbucking mode, it was just really super thin. So we got a bad coil, which is unfortunate. So I'm just going to have to send this off. And this really old style, you know, just look at this magnet and how it's done. It's kind of strange. I wouldn't have thought it was done, but it's pretty old school. It's kind of neat to see how it is. But that's the inside of the pickup. It's a Blaze 2, 1991. Just to give you an idea for the continuity for what this is the neck pickup, and it should be fairly similar. Black, red, and black. Okay, so let's just see what red and black should be. Put that here and this right here. All right, so we got 6.24, right? And then come over here, do the white and the green. And we got 8.7. So that right there, and this is the strange thing. So you got those two single coils, you know, that when they're split apart, that's what they are. Now, if we take the black and white and put them together, this will basically essentially make this a full pickup. And then we just simply just go from the red, we got to tie these two together, which is the bear and the green. Once we tie those together, as they were in their typical configuration, we should get that doubling effect, which is very odd. And the reason I say it's a doubling effect, in other words, a humbucking mode. So we'll go ahead and clip this on. This would be essentially tied to ground. So this should be a full amount. So it should be close to 14. Yeah, there we go. So we got 15. Okay. So that is 15 when it's in full humbucking. So when we tap it, we should get half that rating, which is exactly what that is. So we get about 8.7. So this would be a split coil because we grounded that. So that's essentially the correct values of this particular humbucker. But this one right here, the weirdest part is that when we bridge wires together, like we do over here, Let's do the black and white together. And get the green and the bear together. All right. There it is. And touch that to the there. And then touch this, and it should work. And see, we got 13, which is very odd. Because that would seem like both pickups are working, right? Because we got that value right there. See, like this, when we go to the red, we get nothing. So I'm not sure what's going on. And, you know, again, attaching these cables the same way down to here, I don't know, maybe. I'm going to remove this wire completely from it because it's just confusing. But from what I'm taking, it's just like, it seems like it's in a humbucker mode when it's attached, but I can't get it to give me anything but a single coil sound. So anyways, that's where we're at. We'll have to send this off to get it rewound if there's something wrong with one of those coils. That's what I believe, because we're not getting anything out of that red. So I'm going to take it apart and then send it out, and then maybe in a month I'll get it back and it should be all good. That is what it looks like if it was brand new. Just a toothbrush, some naphtha. This is fucking disgusting. Lick that for me. Can you imagine what's in that? Ugh. Whatevs. But they both look like that, so don't throw them away. You can get them spot clean. So no sweat. Well, it didn't turn out as good as some of the other ones. They sometimes are just harder to cut through. They still really, you know, still has a bit of the scratches. I could have gone down a little bit deeper with 400. I guess these are just 30-year-old scratches that you really just got to get into it and really take off the top layer. But, you know, I did 4 different layers of, or 4 different types of buffing agents. And realistically, this works pretty well, and it got it nice and shiny again. And from a distance, it looks great. I'm fine with it. I'm not really trying to make it absolutely factory, but would have been nice if it was just a little cleaner than that. But either way, I'm happy. I can start restoring it or start putting it together tomorrow. We're happy to see what this thing's going to sound like with the fixed pickup. And we'll start the next section now. Boop. Assembly time. All right, we got all the screws cleaned up. They soaked for probably, I don't know, 3-4 days in WD-40, so they're all nice and shiny. Still left them, you know, with the patina that they have on there because I like the original screws as long as they're not completely rusted, which these are fine. They're in good shape. Some of them look brand new. So I'm going to go ahead and put the pick guard together, test everything. I need to just check some old reference pictures. I think that one was flipped like this and these were straight ahead. I believe that. Again, this one was rewound, so I'm happy about that. And just need to confirm, I think it's the placement like this is the correct order. And we'll go ahead and throw this thing together, test it out, and we'll get it put it together. Yay! All put together. Looking really, really sharp now. Things nice and bright and polished. Ready for strings, intonation, and pickups are working great. Can't wait to hear that combination of everything. You see everything was cleaned up. Tremolo's built. All right, time to string her. Last piece to go on there. Just got to go ahead and intonate it. It is beautiful. Very, very happy with the way this turned out. I'm really digging it, so I will do an audio demo in a little while. But last piece to put on.